Saturday, just another ordinary Saturday. I had no big plans for the evening. Maybe watch a movie, read a book, or just relax at home. It was supposed to be one of those quiet nights where nothing out of the ordinary happens. But little did I know, that night would change my life forever. Emily, my wife, was her usual busy self that morning. She spent extra time in front of the mirror, carefully picking out her outfit. I didn't think much of it at first. She always took pride in her appearance. "I have a big night planned with the girls," she said, smiling brightly as she grabbed her purse. "Don't wait up for me, okay?" It might be late. I nodded, not suspecting a thing. After all, we'd been together for 9 years, and I trusted her completely. She kissed me goodbye and headed out the door, leaving me to my quiet evening. Hours passed, and I found myself scrolling mindlessly through TV channels, barely paying attention to anything. Dinner sat untouched on the table. I wasn't hungry. Something felt off. It was a subtle, nagging feeling in the pit of my stomach, but I brushed it off. "Stop overthinking," I told myself. Then my phone buzzed. It was a text from a friend I hadn't heard from in weeks. "Hey, you coming tonight?" "It's going to be wild." "Coming where?" I had no idea what he was talking about. Curious, I texted back, "Where am I supposed to be?" His reply came almost instantly. "The party, man? You weren't invited?" Weird. I thought Emily would have mentioned it. Emily? A party? She hadn't said a word about it. My curiosity turned into unease. I grabbed my jacket and car keys, deciding to check it out for myself. I didn't know what I'd find, but something told me I needed to go. When I arrived, the place was buzzing with music and laughter. The house was packed, and the atmosphere screamed celebration. I pushed through the crowd, looking for a familiar face. That's when I saw her. Emily, standing in the center of the room, laughing with a man I didn't recognize. She was holding a drink, her body language far too familiar with his. My heart started to pound as I moved closer, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. And then it happened. The man leaned in, whispered something in her ear, and she laughed. Too loudly, too intimately. Her hand brushed against his chest, and my blood ran cold. In that moment, she turned her head and saw me. Her smile vanished. Her face froze in shock, and the room seemed to go silent. All eyes were suddenly on me, and I could feel the weight of their stares. I didn't know what to say or do. My mind was racing, and my heart felt like it was about to explode. All I knew was that nothing would ever be the same again. The room felt like it was shrinking around me. My feet felt rooted to the ground as Emily's wide eyes locked with mine. The noise of the party faded into a dull hum, replaced by the deafening sound of my own heartbeat. Her shock quickly morphed into something else. Panic. I could see it in the way she froze, like a deer caught in headlights. The man standing next to her turned to follow her gaze. He looked confused at first, then irritated, as if my presence was somehow an inconvenience. I didn't know who he was, but everything about the way he stood next to her, the way he leaned in with a smirk that screamed arrogance, made my stomach churn. "Michael?" Emily's voice broke the silence. It was barely a whisper, but it cut through the air like a knife. She took a hesitant step toward me, her drink trembling in her hand. "What are you doing here?" I wanted to laugh at the absurdity of her question. What am I doing here? I had no idea how to respond. My mind was still scrambling to catch up with what my eyes had just witnessed. The woman I had trusted for almost a decade was here, in the middle of some kind of secret celebration with a man who clearly wasn't just a casual acquaintance? I should be asking you that, I finally managed to say, my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside me. My eyes darted around the room, taking in the faces of people I barely recognized. Some were staring at us, whispering behind their hands, while others awkwardly pretended not to notice. The tension was thick, and I could feel it pressing down on me. Emily opened her mouth to speak, but before she could say anything, the man next to her stepped forward. He was tall, well-dressed, and far too comfortable for someone who had just been caught standing way too close to another man's wife. "Hey, buddy, relax," he said, his tone dripping with condescension. "You're making a scene." A scene? I hadn't even started yet. My hands balled into fists at my sides, but I forced myself to stay calm. "And you are?" I asked, keeping my voice low but firm. He raised an eyebrow, clearly unimpressed. "I'm Ryan, Emily's friend." The hesitation before the word friend was almost laughable. He didn't even try to sound convincing. "Friend," I repeated, the word bitter on my tongue. I turned back to Emily, who looked like she wanted to disappear. "Care to explain why your friend has his hands all over you at a party I wasn't even invited to?" She stammered, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment. "It's not what it looks like," she began, her voice shaky. "I didn't think you'd want to come. It's just a work thing." "A work thing?" I echoed, my voice rising slightly. The room had gone almost completely silent now. I could feel the weight of every pair of eyes on us. "Do all your work events involve flirting with friends behind my back?" Emily's eyes darted around the room, desperate for an escape, but there was nowhere to hide. Ryan, however, didn't seem fazed. If anything, he looked amused, like he was enjoying the spectacle. That smirk on his face pushed me dangerously close to my breaking point. "Look, man," Ryan said, stepping between us. "You're clearly overreacting. Emily and I are just having a good time. Maybe you should try loosening up." That was it. That was the moment the dam broke. "Loosening up?" I repeated, my voice shaking with barely restrained anger. "You think I'm overreacting because I walked into a party to find my wife throwing herself at some random guy?" Ryan scoffed. But before he could respond, I stepped closer, closing the distance between us. My voice dropped to a deadly calm as I looked him straight in the eye. "If you don't back off right now, you're going to regret it." He held my gaze for a moment, clearly weighing his options. For all his arrogance, he wasn't stupid. He took a small step back, raising his hands in mock surrender. All right. No need to get hostile." I turned my attention back to Emily, who looked like she might burst into tears. "We're leaving," I said, my voice cold and final. "Now." "Michael, please, let me explain," she pleaded, reaching out to touch my arm. I pulled away before she could make contact. "Explain what?" I shot back, my voice rising again. "Explain why you lied to me? Why you're here with him instead of being honest with your husband?" Her lips moved, but no sound came out. She had no answer, and we both knew it. The silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. Finally, I turned and started walking toward the door. I didn't look back to see if she was following. All I knew was that I couldn't stay in that room for another second. As I stepped outside into the cool night air, I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. My hands were still shaking, and my mind was racing with questions. What had I just walked into? And how long had this been going on? I didn't have the answers yet. But one thing was certain. This was far from over. The car ride home was a suffocating silence. Emily sat beside me, fidgeting with her hands, occasionally glancing at me, but she didn't dare speak. I kept my eyes on the road, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. My mind raced with every possible scenario, each more painful than the last. Finally, she broke the silence. "Michael, I swear, it's not what you think." I let out a bitter laugh, my eyes still fixed ahead. "Not what I think? So you weren't draped over some guy at a party I wasn't invited to? Enlighten me, Emily. What exactly was that?" She hesitated, searching for words. "It was just friendly. Ryan's a coworker, and it's nothing serious." "Nothing serious?" I repeated, my voice cold. "Then why couldn't you tell me about it? Why lie about where you were going?" "I didn't lie," she snapped defensively. "I just didn't think you'd care about some stupid work party." I slammed the brakes at a red light, turning to look at her for the first time since we left. "Don't you dare try to twist this. You knew exactly what you were doing." Her eyes welled up with tears, but I didn't feel sympathy. Not now, not after what I saw. The rest of the drive was in silence again, the tension in the air thick enough to choke on. As we pulled into the driveway, I could feel the weight of the conversation we were about to have looming over me. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. The moment we stepped inside the house, Emily started talking, her voice frantic. "Michael, please let me explain everything. You're blowing this way out of proportion." I closed the door behind us and turned to face her, my anger finally boiling over. "Out of proportion, Emily? I walked into a room full of strangers, watching you practically throw yourself at another man. How am I supposed to take that?" She flinched at my words, but quickly straightened up, her expression shifting to defiance. "You're being dramatic. It wasn't like that. Ryan is just a friend." "Stop calling him that," I shouted, cutting her off. "Friends don't whisper in each other's ears and act like the rest of the world doesn't exist. Friends don't keep secrets from their spouses." She opened her mouth to respond, but couldn't find the words. Instead, she crossed her arms and looked away, as if that would end the conversation. But I wasn't done. "How long, Emily?" I asked, my voice quieter but sharper. "How long has this been going on?" Her eyes darted back to me, wide with panic. "Nothing is going on. I told you, it was just a party. And you conveniently forgot to mention it to me. You thought I wouldn't notice the way he looked at you, the way you looked at him." Her face turned red, and for a moment, I thought she might deny it again. But instead she said, "I didn't think it mattered because you don't pay attention to me anymore, Michael. You're always so busy with work, with your routine." "Don't you dare turn this around on me," I snapped. "I've been here every single day, supporting you, trusting you, and this is how you repay me?" Tears finally spilled down her cheeks as she tried to defend herself. "It wasn't supposed to be like this. I didn't mean for..." "For what?" I interrupted, my voice trembling with anger and hurt. "For me to find out? For me to see the truth about what our marriage really means to you?" She stayed silent, her tears falling freely now. I shook my head, unable to look at her any longer. "I need some air," I muttered, and walked out the door, leaving her alone in the house filled with the echoes of her own betrayal. The night air hit me like a slap to the face. It was cold, sharp, and unforgiving, much like the situation I found myself in. I walked down the driveway, hands stuffed into my jacket pockets, trying to steady my breathing. My thoughts were a chaotic mess. Anger, betrayal, confusion. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Emily laughing with that man, her hand on his chest, and that smug look on his face. I found myself at the park a few blocks from our house, sitting on a cold bench under a dim street lamp. The stillness of the night was eerie, and for a moment it felt like the entire world had paused. But inside me, a storm raged. How could she do this? After 9 years of marriage, after everything we'd been through together. I replayed the moments leading up to the party, looking for clues I might have missed. The extra time in front of the mirror, the sudden girls' nights, the distant look in her eyes when she thought I wasn't paying attention. It was all there, staring me in the face. I had been too blind, too trusting, to see it. My phone buzzed in my pocket, pulling me out of my thoughts. I hesitated before pulling it out, already knowing who it would be. "Emily, please come home. We need to talk." I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the screen. I didn't know what to say, or if I even wanted to say anything at all. Part of me wanted answers, but another part was afraid of what I'd hear. What if she admitted to more? What if tonight was just the tip of the iceberg? I put the phone back in my pocket without responding and leaned back on the bench, staring up at the stars. The cold seeped into my bones, but I didn't care. I needed to clear my head before I faced her again. I needed to figure out what I was going to do. But one thing was clear. I couldn't go back to the way things were. Something had broken tonight, and I wasn't sure if it could ever be fixed. It was well past midnight when I finally decided to head back home. The walk felt endless, every step weighed down by the questions swirling in my mind. By the time I reached the house, the lights were still on, and I could see Emily pacing through the living room window. Her silhouette moved back and forth, her hands ringing nervously. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The soft click of the door closing made her freeze. She turned to look at me, her face a mix of relief and fear. "Michael," she started, her voice shaky. "Thank you for coming back. I was so worried." I didn't respond, just shrugged off my jacket and tossed it onto the couch. I stayed standing, keeping my distance as I looked at her. "Talk," I said flatly. Her eyes welled up with tears again, but I wasn't moved. This time. She'd cried plenty earlier, but tears don't erase betrayal. She took a deep breath, clasping her hands together as if she were trying to hold herself steady. "Michael," she began, "I need you to understand something. Tonight, what you saw, it wasn't what it looked like." I raised an eyebrow, crossing my arms. "Then what was it, Emily?" "Because from where I was standing, it looked exactly like you were getting cozy with some guy you've been hiding from me." She flinched, but pushed on. "Ryan he's just a coworker. The party was organized by people at work, and I didn't tell you because I thought you wouldn't want to come. You've always said how much you hate those kinds of events." "You're right," I said coldly. "I hate them. But I hate being lied to even more." Her face crumpled, but she didn't stop. "I didn't mean to lie to you. I just thought it would be easier this way. Ryan he's just friendly, that's all. He was joking around tonight, and maybe I let things get a little too casual. But it didn't mean anything, I swear." I stared at her, trying to process her words. "Friendly?" I repeated, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "You think leaning into him, whispering in his ear, and laughing like he's the funniest guy in the world is just friendly? Do you even hear yourself?" She looked down, unable to meet my gaze. "I know how it looked," she murmured. "But I promise, Michael, it didn't mean anything." "Then why didn't you tell me about it?" I snapped. Why did you go out of your way to hide this from me if it was so innocent? Do you have any idea how humiliating it was to walk into that room and see you like that? To have everyone stare at me like I was the fool who didn't know what was going on? Her silence was deafening. She opened her mouth, then closed it, clearly struggling to find a response. Finally, she whispered, "I didn't think it would matter." I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. You didn't think it would matter? Are you even listening to yourself? We've been married for 9 years, Emily. 9 years. And this is how you treat me. Her tears started again, but I wasn't done. You keep saying it didn't mean anything, but you don't get to decide that. I'm the one who walked into that room. I'm the one who saw the way you looked at him. And I'm the one who's left here wondering how the hell I didn't see this coming. She reached out toward me, but I stepped back, putting more distance between us. "Michael, please," she begged. "I know I messed up. I should have told you about the party. I should have been honest. But I swear there's nothing going on with Ryan. You have to believe me." I stared at her, my chest tight with anger and hurt. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that this was all just a misunderstanding, that I hadn't been blind to something deeper. But the image of her with Ryan, the way she laughed and leaned into him, was burned into my mind. "Why should I believe you?" I asked quietly. "What have you done to earn my trust right now?" Her breath hitched, and for a moment I thought she might collapse under the weight of her own guilt. But then she squared her shoulders, her voice trembling but steady. "Because I love you," she said. "Because I made a mistake, and I want to fix it. I want to make this right, Michael. Please." I let her words hang in the air, unsure of how to respond. The anger inside me was still fresh, raw, but beneath it, there was something else. An ache, a deep sadness for what I thought we had, for what I wasn't sure we still had. "I don't know if I can do this right now," I said finally, my voice heavy. "I need time to think. I need to figure out if we can even be saved." Her face crumbled, but she nodded. "Take all the time you need," she whispered. "I'll do whatever it takes to make this right." I didn't respond. Instead, I turned and walked upstairs, leaving her standing alone in the living room. As I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, one question kept repeating in my mind. Was this really the whole story? Or was there more she wasn't telling me? Deep down, I feared the answer. The following morning, I woke up to an empty bed. I wasn't surprised. Emily probably didn't dare to come upstairs after everything that happened. I stared at the ceiling for a while, trying to convince myself to get up and face the day. But the weight of what had unfolded the night before was suffocating. Eventually, I dragged myself out of bed and headed downstairs. Emily was sitting at the dining table, a cup of coffee in her hands, her face pale and drawn. She looked like she hadn't slept, and for a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. She glanced up as I entered the room, her lips parting as if to speak. But I held up a hand. "Not now," I said curtly. "I need coffee first." She nodded silently, watching as I poured myself a cup. The tension in the room was unbearable, but I wasn't ready to hear whatever excuse or explanation she had rehearsed overnight. I needed to clear my head before I let her words sway me. After a few moments of awkward silence, she finally spoke. "Michael, I know you don't want to talk right now, but there's something I need to say." I set my mug down and crossed my arms, leaning against the counter. "Go ahead." She hesitated, her hands gripping the mug tightly. "I know I've hurt you. And I know you don't believe me when I say nothing happened with Ryan. But it's the truth. He's just someone who makes me feel noticed. Lately, I've felt so invisible, Michael. Like I'm just here in the background of your life. Her words stung, but I refused to let her deflect blame onto me. Invisible? I repeated, my voice laced with disbelief. You think this is about you feeling unnoticed, Emily? I've been here every single day, working my ass off to provide for us. I've supported you in everything you've wanted to do, and this is how you repay me? She flinched at my tone, but I pressed on. Do you have any idea how humiliating it was to see you like that? To see the woman I've trusted for 9 years acting like I didn't exist? Her tears started again, but I didn't stop. If you felt invisible, why didn't you talk to me? Why didn't you say something instead of sneaking around and lying to my face? I was scared, she admitted, her voice trembling. Scared you wouldn't care. Scared you brush me off like you always do when I try to talk about how I'm feeling. I shook my head, disbelief washing over me. So, your solution was to run to someone else? To let some random guy notice you while you hid it from me? It wasn't like that, she insisted, her voice rising. I didn't plan for this to happen. Ryan, he's just a coworker, Michael, I swear. Her words felt hollow, and I wasn't sure if I could believe her anymore. But there was something in her tone, something that hinted at more than she was letting on. I decided to press further. Why don't you tell me the whole truth, Emily? I said, my voice cold. If there's really nothing going on, then you shouldn't have anything to hide. She looked away, her silence speaking volumes. My stomach twisted as I watched her wrestle with whatever secret she was still keeping. Finally, she whispered, "There's nothing else, Michael." I swear. But I didn't believe her, not anymore. The nagging feeling in the back of my mind told me there was more to this story, and I was determined to find out what it was, whether she told me or not. That evening, while Emily was out running errands, I decided to dig a little deeper. If she wasn't going to give me the truth, I would find it myself. I started with her phone. It was sitting on the kitchen counter, locked, but still buzzing occasionally with notifications. I hesitated for a moment, guilt creeping in. But then I remembered how she had lied to me. She had no right to privacy after what she'd done. I unlocked her phone using the passcode I'd memorized long ago and began scrolling through her messages. At first, everything seemed normal. Chats with her friends, family, and co-workers. But then I found a thread labeled Ryan. My heart sank. Opening the conversation, I was hit with a wave of dread. The messages were casual at first, work-related banter, nothing out of the ordinary. But as I scrolled further, the tone shifted. Flirty emojis, inside jokes, and late-night messages that had nothing to do with work. My blood ran cold as I read one particular exchange from just a week ago. "Ryan, can't wait to see you tonight. I'll save you a drink." "Emily, you better don't forget to behave this time." The final nail in the coffin was a photo she had sent him. A selfie taken in our bedroom mirror, wearing the dress she'd worn to the party. My stomach turned, and I felt like I might throw up. By the time she walked through the door, I was sitting at the dining table, her phone in my hand. She froze when she saw me, her expression shifting from confusion to panic. "Michael," she started, her voice trembling. "What are you doing?" I held up the phone, the screen still displaying her conversation with Ryan. "You tell me, Emily. What's this?" Her face went pale, and for a moment I thought she might faint. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. I stood up, my voice low and steady. You lied to me over and over, and now I have the proof. Michael, please, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. It's not what it looks like. Don't, I snapped, cutting her off. Don't insult my intelligence. I've seen enough. She collapsed into a chair, sobbing uncontrollably, but I felt nothing. No sympathy, no pity, just a hollow emptiness where my love for her used to be. I walked toward the door, grabbing my keys. I'm done, Emily, I said, my voice cold. I don't know what happens next, but I can't stay here tonight. And with that, I walked out, leaving her alone to face the mess she had created. I drove aimlessly for hours, the city lights blurring together as my thoughts spiraled. My mind replayed every moment of the last 24 hours, each one cutting deeper than the last. Emily's lies, her betrayal, the messages with Ryan. It all felt surreal, like I was trapped in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Eventually, I found myself parked by the river. The water was calm, reflecting the moonlight in a way that felt mocking, too peaceful for the storm raging inside me. I turned off the engine and sat in silence, staring at the dark expanse before me. I thought about everything we had built together over the years, the holidays, the laughter, the plans for the future. It all seemed meaningless now. How could someone who claimed to love me so deeply betray me so easily? And for what? A fling? Attention? Excitement? The truth was, I didn't even know Emily anymore. The woman I saw at that party, the one sending flirty texts to another man, wasn't the woman I thought I married. She wasn't the woman who held my hand on our wedding day and promised to love me forever. That version of her was gone, replaced by a stranger who had no regard for the life we had built together. As the hours passed, my anger began to dull, replaced by an overwhelming sadness. I wasn't just losing my wife. I was losing the future I had envisioned with her. The life we had planned together was crumbling before my eyes, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. I thought about going back home, but the idea of facing Emily again was too much to bear. Instead, I pulled out my phone and searched for nearby hotels. I needed space, time to think, and a chance to figure out my next move. By the time I checked into a small, unassuming hotel on the outskirts of town, it was nearly dawn. The room was quiet and plain, a stark contrast to the chaos of my thoughts. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my reflection in the dark TV screen. Who was I without Emily? The question lingered in my mind as exhaustion finally overtook me. I lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling until sleep mercifully claimed me. When I woke up later that afternoon, my phone was flooded with missed calls and messages from Emily. I ignored them, scrolling through social media instead, desperate for a distraction. That's when I saw it. A photo posted by a co-worker of Emily's, someone I recognized from the party. The caption read, "Last night was insane. Can't wait for the next one." In the photo, Emily and Ryan were front and center, smiling brightly. She had her arm draped around his shoulder, his hand resting on her waist. They looked like a couple, not co-workers, and the sight of it made my stomach churn. I stared at the image, anger flaring up all over again. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was the shamelessness of it. She had no remorse, no sense of the damage she had caused. While I was sitting alone, trying to figure out how to salvage my life, she was out there, parading around with him like I didn't exist. I knew then that I couldn't ignore the truth any longer. Emily had made her choice, and it wasn't me. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt a strange sense of clarity. This wasn't my fault. I hadn't failed her. She had failed me. With a newfound determination, I picked up my phone and dialed the number of my best friend, David. He had always been my sounding board, the one person I could count on when things got tough. When he answered, his voice was groggy, but I didn't care. "I need your help," I said, my voice steady for the first time in days. David didn't hesitate. "Whatever you need, man. Tell me what's going on." I told him everything. The party, the messages, the photo. By the time I finished, he was furious on my behalf. "You don't deserve this, Michael," he said. "She doesn't deserve you." Hearing those words was like a balm to my soul. For so long, I had been questioning myself, wondering what I had done wrong. But now I realized the problem wasn't me. It was her. David offered to meet me, and we agreed on a bar downtown. As I got ready to leave the hotel, I felt a small spark of hope for the first time. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing for certain. I wouldn't let Emily's betrayal define me. This was the beginning of something new, a chance to rebuild my life, with or without her. When I arrived at the bar, David was already there, a beer in front of him and a concerned look on his face. He stood up to greet me, giving me a firm handshake and a reassuring pat on the back. "You look like hell," he said, half joking. I sat down, letting out a tired laugh. I feel worse than I look. For the next hour, I laid everything out for him. The lies, the betrayal, the picture, every painful detail. David listened intently, his expression darkening as I talked. When I finished, he shook his head. "She doesn't deserve another second of your time, Michael. You need to start thinking about yourself now." He was right. For too long, I had been trying to make sense of her actions, trying to fix something that she had already broken. It was time to stop. "I'm going to file for divorce," I said, the words feeling heavy but final. "I can't do this anymore." David nodded. "That's the right call. But make sure you protect yourself. Don't let her twist this around on you." I promised him I would. That night, as I drove back to the hotel, I felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. The thought of ending my marriage hurt, but the idea of staying in it hurt even more. I needed to move forward, no matter how difficult it would be. The next day, I went back home to pack some things and let Emily know my decision. When I walked through the door, she was waiting for me, her eyes red and swollen from crying. "Michael, please," she started, rushing toward me. "Can we talk? Can we fix this?" I held up a hand, stopping her in her tracks. "There's nothing left to fix, Emily. You made your choice, and now I'm making mine. I'm filing for divorce." Her face crumbled, and she sank onto the couch, sobbing. It wasn't supposed to be like this. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I felt a pang of sadness, but I didn't let it show. "You didn't mean for me to find out, you mean? That's the only thing you regret?" She looked up at me, her eyes pleading. "I love you, Michael. I made a mistake, but I'll do whatever it takes to make it right." I shook my head, my voice calm but firm. "Love isn't supposed to feel like this, Emily. If you loved me, you wouldn't have done what you did. It's over." Her sobs grew louder, but I turned away, heading upstairs to pack. I couldn't stay here any longer. It was time to let go. Over the next few weeks, I began the process of rebuilding my life. I moved into a small apartment downtown, focusing on work and leaning on David and a few close friends for support. The divorce papers were filed, and Emily didn't contest them. She knew she had no ground to stand on. Surprisingly, as time passed, I started to feel lighter. The weight of the betrayal began to lift, and I found myself looking forward to the future. I wasn't sure what it held, but I was determined to make it better than the past. One evening, as I was settling into my new routine, I received a text from an unknown number. It was Ryan. "Hey man, I just wanted to say I'm sorry for everything that happened. I didn't mean to cause trouble between you and Emily. If there's anything I can do to make it right, let me know." I stared at the message, anger bubbling up again, but instead of responding, I deleted it. Ryan wasn't worth my time, and neither was the drama he brought into my life. I had better things to focus on. Months later, I found myself sitting by the river again. But this time, the weight on my chest was gone. The water still shimmered under the moonlight, but it no longer mocked me. Instead, it felt peaceful, like a quiet promise of new beginnings. I had learned a lot about myself through this ordeal, about what I deserved and what I wouldn't tolerate. I wasn't the same man who had walked into that party, blindsided by betrayal. I was stronger now, wiser, and ready to face whatever came next. As I stood up to leave, I felt a small smile tug at the corners of my lips